Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 15th regular meeting of Council. I wish to respectfully recognize the Coast Salish Nations whose traditional territory we are on. This includes the SNAW-NAW-AS, I hope I said that right, and the Qualicum First Nation. I wish to acknowledge the presence of Chief David Bob of the NANOOSE First Nation. Chief Bob, we invite you to speak, if you so wish.
As protocol is, usually I have my aunt do an opening prayer, then my uncle says a greeting in our language, so if you don't mind.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And I always love to sing the song that was given to me when I was feeling sad. You know, we're all working for our children, grandchildren. You do your best, and that's what I like to do in my life. And it's worrisome when the kids go the other way. And I received the song, and I was told not to think about what goes on, but only to pray for my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. So hi, I was just so happy to be with each one of you. Lord, oh my Lord God, oh Lord, oh, Siam, oh Lord, oh I so Lord, oh Siam, oh Lord, oh Merci Hachka, Gaga Tutasam, Tisripet Nakoil, Tawat need to steal, to cream at a hell sheets, took the Ayeswa steal, Ayeswa out and Ayeswa Halitan, Gaga Shishikli, La Chusta, Slewat and Alias to them, the Ayeswa steal, Ayeswa out, Tawat Moktin Srat Nakoil, now it's at Lachen, Tawat need to steal, Gaga Chikun, La Chusta. Zij got mocht in de straat, nou het ziel helemaal niet te stuwen. Te kwijt, dus jij wil nou het ja zoiets is zo die hij bestaat om steen. Gaan ik snaas mens, ik menas, het is anders great, laat hem steen.
Atiem Shwalwa. Siam Nasiaya, T talented not night, high tap got na quail, he tap eat na lelums to halkamin and miskimu. High tap got na quail, kusuquinamet, Jaytuat and alien slee alop. High tap got na quail, dying squallow and alop. Niftakwetay ay squallowan, Siam squallowan, Uim squallopet na quail. High tapka, Siam squallowa, high tapka.
Just wanted to stand over here. I felt funny with my back to you. I wanted to say thank you for welcoming us to your chamber. Mayor, thank you. As you've witnessed, we live on the same island, but as you've seen, our culture is different. We don't speak French, we speak Alkamilam. I can trace my lineage back to my great, I can go on. From here, Vancouver Island, my family go to Hope, go down to Lummi. We're from here. And I want to say thank you for finally acknowledging that we are here, because we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to be neighbors. My kids are going to grow up. Your kids are going to grow up. Right now, we're getting close, hopefully, to settling our treaty. If we do, we have two choices. We can sit and talk and plan a future that's good for everybody, or we can fight. Either or. There's no middle ground. Because it's, when treaty's settled, it's going to affect the tax base, where the land is they're going to give us. So no matter who we deal with, we're going to have to, those are the two options we have. So I'm glad that we're starting off this way first. I see you got paintings on your wall, the open hands. That's from our culture. You all greet with an open hand, your friends, your neighbors, your family. We all know what a closed hand means. And I don't see any of that, so I'm glad. I want to say thank you again. We're here. We're not going anywhere. We're willing to work with you, sit and talk with you. We're not going to go anywhere. So with that, I wish you luck. I'm going to take my elders out now and feed them, because for them it was short notice. Our band is going through a growing phase where we've had to lay off some of our staff. So the formal invite got to my office today. So it's my fault that my elders were not prepared, so I'm taking them for a nice dinner after this. But thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Chief Bob, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for bringing the elders. Can I call you Auntie Ann? We've met often enough now, and Uncle Jim. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your blessing, and thank you once again for allowing us to meet on your traditional territories. And I have for you a small gift.
Mark.
4 years from now, you won't be able to get them all out of the pictures.
See you, Mark. So this evening we have first up on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes of the council meeting held November 3rd, 2014. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this recommendation? Moved by Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Beal. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Nobody opposed, so this is carried undefeated. Thank you. The next item up for on the agenda are the minutes of the inaugural council meeting held on December the 1st, 2014. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor, I'm getting used to it, Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Greir. All those in favor?
I thought you forgot my name.
Opposed? Thank you, that's carried. The next item we have is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Oakes and second by Councillor Beal. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you, that's carried. This evening we have two delegations. And the first delegation is the Craig Street Merchants, the request for beautification of Craig Street. And we have two presenters, Barry Evans and Shelley Atwood. would you please come and turn on the microphones? Make yourself at home. You have 10 minutes.
Mayor Lefebvre? Mayor Lefebvre?
Yes.
Thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest since my business is on Craig Street, and I'll be removing myself from the room.
Thank you. Okay.
I heard someone say last time that we're new at this, so please forgive us if we Your Worship, the Mayor. Okay, how's that? Your Worship, the Mayor, members of Council, and departed distinguished guests. First of all, congratulations on your appointments. I feel sorry for having Councillor Patterson leave the official chamber on the first business. I do understand her reasons. Okay, I almost have to swallow it, I think. Okay, my name's Barry Evans.
And I'm Shelley Atwood.
We're going to have to keep doing this. We're here to represent the businesses on Craig Street and their efforts to improve certain aspects of Craig Street. Now, I'm going to have to ask Shelley to be the mouse. Can just click it. Yeah. Yes, I know, yes.
Oh, perfect.
We're a shopping district within the city of Parksville. We had hoped to use the logo illustrated on the left of your screen, as this logo would illustrate our connection with the city of Parksville whilst promoting our district to local Oceanside residents and visitors in our area. We were told by the City Communications Officer the logo and woodmark in full or in part must not be used to promote the Craig Street shopping distance. However, we've received expert advice indicating this may not be correct, and we will be resolving this in future. But we hope to have a connection with the city by using their Sand Dollar, but as I said, that will be resolved. As you can see by the slide, the Sand Dollar Mortgage Company and the Beach Club still use the same thing.
We started the Craig Street Merchants Group the end of May, and we've been having meetings ever since. So, and the following stores are part of that group.
We would like Craig Street to become a thriving centre of activity for the city, including great shopping experiences and community events. It's most important to remember that most of the businesses in Craig Street are retail and rely on walk-in customers. People and shoppers are far more likely to be attracted to something that's pleasing to the eye, and this could not be said about Craig Street at this time. Our aim, make sure we're coordinated here. Our aim is to improve the business potential of the businesses in Craig Street shopping districts, and we plan to establish Craig Street as a key shopping district in the Parksville downtown area. We will assist the revitalisation of Craig Street and plan to execute a promotional campaign that will contribute to the success of the shopping district. I'd like to emphasise the word district here, as we hope to assist the businesses, all the businesses in the adjoining area. We have already had inquiries from businesses outside of Craig Street on how to join, but at this stage we're limiting it to just Craig Street. I don't want to get it out of hand too quickly. Points to consider. Craig Street's the heart of the downtown area, has always been known as the heart of the downtown Parksville, and that's point number one. Okay. It's the busiest shopping district in Parksville with the highest concentration of retail businesses in the downtown area. It hosts the majority of activities in Parksville. Every parade held in Parksville goes down Craig Street. This is Canada Day last year.
The Summer by the Sea Market, referred to by the locals as the Craig Street Market, a very successful event conducted by the Parksville Chamber of Commerce and takes place every summer. Thousands of people go on that street.
So after reviewing these points, you would think it important to make sure that Craig Street stood out and reflected the better side of Parksville. Yet it would have to be one of the worst looking streets in Parksville. This is subjective, I know, but I gather everyone would recognise that it could be dramatically improved. Our plan Since its inception, the group has been actively pursuing all types of goals. You may have already heard a radio ad or a commercial on the radio, The Beach. This is a group-funded ad and is to become a regular feature. We've just started the group and there are many events on the drawing board, so to speak. As an example of the recently organised Christmas on Craig Street, something that was put together at short notice but works surprisingly well. It demonstrated all sorts of potential and certainly benefited the businesses in the area. The plan is to make this an annual event and make it bigger and better. To date, we've had meetings with the following groups and people. We've met with the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Kim Burden, the previous Mayor, Mr. Chris Berger, His Worship the Mayor prior to becoming His Worship the Mayor. I've spoken with Ms. Kiva Keller along with Kim Burden. She's the manager of current planning in Parksville regarding the signage and in particular the recently approved signage bylaw 1511. Made many approaches to the City Engineering and Operations Department, and some of our members have attended PDBA meetings which made numerous requests of the PDBA, but to date the results have been very disappointing.
One of our plans, one of our plans is to have some murals. We're hoping to work with the city to have some murals painted on some of the walls because it's very drab and doesn't look inviting. So we're hoping that's part of the beautification of Craig Street.
Okay. Where are we at? Why are we here? In an effort to kickstart the revitalisation of Craig Street, we are presenting you with the, as someone once put it, the low-hanging fruit. We are requesting the city assist us with the following. In consultation with the city, the installation of bench seats along the length of the street. A point to note, on the Alberni Highway between Highway 19 and Jensen Avenue, there are 9 such seats. That's the street parallel to Craig Street. On Craig Street, there are none. Again, in consultation with the city, the installation of additional garbage bins along the length of the street. During the winter and autumn and winter months, not so much a problem, but certainly during the market nights, the bins fill to overfull and there's garbage everywhere. So obviously there's a shortfall. This was a wish list, I know, but the replacement of the present unsightly plastic, I call them plastic because I don't really know what they're made of, but they're certainly unsightly flower beds with the standard concrete flower beds that you find elsewhere in the city. The concrete one has the Parksville mural embossed or stamped on it. I'm told that the plastic ones have some sort of self-watering system in them, and I don't know what the complications are of fitting the concrete ones with one, but that's something to discuss with the city, with the engineering department.
At one of our meetings, my landlord had a suggestion that we paint the crosswalks quite bold and brilliant, maybe with the theme of our beach, of course, sand dollars, some starfish, stuff like that. So I know it was approved through the PDBA. That was or it was liked, excuse me, as a good idea, but as of yet, nothing's happened. So that's something that we would like help with as well.
We'd like the city to investigate ways of improving lighting in Craig Street to improve both security and appearance. I point out these 2 slides were taken using time exposure, because if I'd taken it with a normal 60th a second, you just would have seen black. Just to give you an idea of the contrast, my wife's store lights are on there, and you can see a contrast between how bright the lights of the store are and the city light, the street light. There are 3 such street lights on the street. They're incandescent, they're very high, and they're not very bright. And it's actually, I wouldn't say it's unsafe to walk along there at night, but it's certainly not acceptable. And finally, approval in principle to investigate the feasibility of installing an arch at the highway end of Craig Street. I spoke with Al Metcalf before he left. I gather he was sick. He recommended that initially we put the proposal to council. As he put it, there's no point in proceeding unless we have the council's blessing to proceed. At this point, I'd like to highlight there's no financial commitment involved. I'd like to speak to an engineering company that I've been recommended by Kim Burden, and just find out what is involved. The artwork and the structure, etc., is also up for debate. But we believe it'll grab the attention of passers-by and certainly highlight this end, that particular end of Craig Street. I think the next one is summary, right? In summary, these requests are just a start in the revitalising process, but at least they are a start. Hang on, not yet. Okay, the PDBA. There's obviously questions as to why we're making this presentation to you and not via the PDBA. The answer, unfortunately, is very disappointing. Basically, we've been told by the PDBA that they're not available to help. Apart from a letter which was directed to Mr. Metcalf on the 24th of June or something, hang on, here it is, on the 9th of July, I apologise, and a reply on the 23rd of July, there's been no specific action mentioned by the PDBA. We've made numerous requests, but basically what we want, the main request is to start things happening in the BIA, in the Parksville downtown area, but so far nothing has happened. We've been informed by the PDBA that there is no intention to spend any of their budget in Craig Street for some time, possibly 10 years.
The first meeting that we had with the PDBA, I'm not used to this, sorry. The first meeting that we had with the PDBA, we were shown the 15-year beautification plan, and she said not to look in it because we weren't in it. So we were told that they weren't going to touch our street for 10 to 15 years. So that's sort of where we started.
We were told that if we wanted to make any changes, effectively, do it yourself. Okay. Requests for Craig Street business owners to fill vacancies within the PDBA board to become proactive were effectively ignored. The PDBA quoted bylaws that they claimed said they did not have to fill the vacancies, even though there were people willing to fill them. I would have to add, having read the same bylaws, it does not indicate that they should not be filled either. As a matter of fact, Bylaw 30(2) allows for such mid-term appointment. We did have a couple of people in Craig Street willing to go along and join the PDBA because of the inaction that we saw, but even though their names were put up, they were never contacted. That's the next one you won't mind. Sorry, we're new at this. Okay. The removal of graffiti, something that they received money for from the city as part of their charter, was minimal at best. Again, they quote a bylaw that says that they will only remove graffiti twice. I gather it's not a bylaw, I think it's a policy that they've now quoted. But I was told it was a bylaw, and it's not in their bylaw. They'd only remove it twice, after which we were informed it was a landlord's responsibility to remove it. I couldn't find such a bylaw, but I think it's only fair that they should be required to inform the individuals doing the vandalism. They were limited to 2 times at each location. Their answer to bad lighting, and I know this was a subject discussed with Al Metcalf, was totally unacceptable. Their answer was basically for the shop owners to leave their front lights on. No one was volunteering to pay the hydro bill. I thought it would have been taken more seriously. The flower boxes which we have, the plastic ones, they didn't assist us with either. I personally went and lobbied the engineering department out at the industrial park for over a year to get those 4 placed in Craig Street. I'm not pointing fingers at why they chose those particular flower boxes. I believe they were conducting an experiment, and the flowers that grew in them didn't blossom until about a month before they were pulled out. So I'm not sure how successful they were deemed to be. It would have to be an understatement. Let me get on the next slide. Wrong one, so it doesn't matter. To say that we're not very happy. This slide here, I put up here just to draw your attention. It's part of the City of Parksville Bylaw 1502, Para 3. It's titled Expenditure. I bring it to your attention as a timely reminder as to why the PDBA was formed and how it is directed by the city to spend its budget. personally, and the straw poll that I've conducted over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've not yet found a small business, a retail-style business in the BIA that can point and say, that's what they've done for me. So I think they're lacking. I think what the first sentence there says, we believe they shortfall on their charter.
Sorry. We have talked a lot about the revitalization of Parksville. We don't feel that we're getting any support in doing that. And I think for 14 businesses on one street to be together and to have the same view on it not being done and requiring some help, I think that stands for a lot and says a lot.
Okay, we see these proposals as a step in the right direction and at minimal cost to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you going to leave us with a copy of your presentation?
If you'd like, yes, certainly.
Would you please? Thank you. Members of council, are there any questions from members of council? If everybody has questions, I'm going to sort of go from left to right or right to left. Does everybody have questions? So why don't we start over with Councillor Salter. You go first. And
thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the chair. So my question is, what exactly is it that you want? Are you talking about the business association not assisting you, and you would like us to somehow help you with that, or do you want to create your own Craig Street Merchants Association?
No, we're not asking for money, Councillor Salter. The PDBA receives a budget of $155,000 for 2015. I don't believe we're seeing value for money. As a matter of fact, as I said, I can't think of something. The Christmas trees on the roofs of the buildings, I think there's 6 of them. And again, this is not just my point of view. The businesses I've approached cannot name one thing that they've done to assist their business, to promote business within the BIA. So all we want now, all we're asking for are those 6 items, the bench seats, the garbage bins. It would be great if someone could get a can of paint and repaint the curbsides where there's parking, not parking. The painting of the crosswalks in a Parksville style, city by the sea or whatever you want to call it, but the Parksville style crosswalks. And I can't think of the other one that I've missed.
But I think, sorry, we don't want to pull away from the PDBA at all. We want just, because we were trying to work with them and not getting any results, that's why we're now here. So we want just help in any way that it comes to us. So.
Councillor Greir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I think probably the first thing you have to do is get along with the PBRA, because I've been in other communities where there's been a dissension between different streets and different merchants, and at the end of the day, you have to get along with one another and all be on the same page. So I think that's an important place to start. The other thing is, have you ever asked, I'm assuming most of the businesses rent, so there's different owners. Have you ever got all the owners together to see what they would do to pretty up the street somewhat? Because they're responsible for the buildings, and I think the building could certainly do with some improvements. So it'd be a good idea to get all those owners of those buildings together to see what they will do before you come back to council. But I think, you have to work together as merchants in this town. It's not a very large town.
We've been attempting to work with them, but as we were saying, we've got nothing back. And I'd like to highlight, I suppose, expenditure para B of their direction from council in the bylaw to improve, beautify the sidewalks, arch structures, murals, seating seats, flower beds, banners in the business improvement area. Now, they get a budget to do that. I'd like to, my question is, what's being done? I can walk all around the BIA, and I've not seen any evidence of that para B in Parksville, in the BIA. So one of the directions given them by council is to improve and beautify the sidewalks, public art structures, murals, seating areas, flowers and banners. And yet, from my point of view and our point of view, we've not seen any evidence of this. There's a lot of attention given right now to a thing they're presenting as a funicular. If you're not sure what a funicular is, it's a train that goes up a hill. A lot of their attention, according to their minutes, is based on having this funicular approved. They want $15,000, according to their budget, for a study, a feasibility study. Something in my mind that's already been done, because they ran a free bus from the beach to the downtown area for over a year, and they cancelled it after a year because of the poor rider count. But they want $15,000, or they've allocated $15,000, I gather, in their own budget to something which is outside their scope.
I could agree with you on that.
Can I also address that we have had phone calls into some of the owners and not received phone calls back from them, because for the murals we think that it has to be the building owners, of course. So we are working on that, and again, we just asked for some help on that, but we have had calls into different building owners to do that as well. So thank you.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation. This feels like this is something between you and the PDBA. And I know I have talked to some of the PDBA, the members there. Barry, isn't your wife on the board?
She's a director, yes.
Yeah. So you have been able to get somebody on the board?
Councillor Powell, you have to understand the process to get on the PDBA
I'm
board.
just clarifying the information you gave us.
She is, but
Okay,
no one else
so
can. That's the problem.
I'd like to finish.
Sorry, yeah.
The information you're asking us to do, as far as I know, I did see that letter from June or July 9th or whatever it was, and it was in process. And they did go and they talked to staff about the streets. The signage is in works right now. The pavement treatments, that would be something would have to come to the city. And I understand that your logo with the starfish was an infringement on our logo, and it's my understanding that there's some work being done with that. And so I think that we have an agreement with the PDBA, and they get money from us to follow through with the beautification. And I just want to clarify through you, Mayor, to staff about the contract that we have with them, and what the responsibility is of the PDBA. Do you have a copy of it and how we entered into that agreement?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Powell. The PDBA, I think this is their 11th year, first year of their third term. The two previous terms were done on a petition by the PDBA through the businesses, whereby the city was petitioned with 50% of the owners having at least 50% of the assessed value, asked the city to endorse the Parksville Downtown Business Association with a set of intentions such as the expenditures that are outlined in Part 3. This is something that the PDBA came to the city with regards to the request for the bylaw. Based upon that request, the city did in fact pass the bylaw, but it was more with the expenditure list that the PDBA had given council as opposed to the other way around. The most recent renewal of the agreement was done rather than the businesses approaching the city, because this was the third, or would have been the third renewal. The city agreed to do it based on the counter petition portion of it, whereby at least 50% of the property owners with 50% of the assessed value would have to express their unwillingness to enter into the agreement again. And again, it was pretty much the same bylaw that was presented to start with the list of expenditures or types of expenditures that the PDBA asked the city endorse, which the city did.
Sir, follow up, Councillor Powell.
Thank you. And so what you're saying then is the PDBA sort of directs their own where they're going to spend their money?
They asked the city to pass a bylaw based upon the expenditure types that they had presented to the city, which the city did.
Okay. And so, just for clarification, you do know that their budget is published and what they spend their money on, and so it's open to everybody as far as I know because it's public. So
I understand that. Am I allowed to ask a question of Mr. Manson? I'd like it clarified. The business owners, when they were petitioned this time, were they advised of the reversal of the procedure? Of the first two times, that was required to have a 50% positive vote, and on this occasion, a non-vote ended up as a positive vote to keep it. And I understand there were 49 returns, of which 24 only votes were valid. So the whole thing was based on a 24 vote count. So I'd like to know if the actual business owners were informed of the reversal of the procedure, because I spoke to one this afternoon that wasn't aware of it.
Ms. Comas?
Yes, Your Worship. The petition process is set out in the community charter, and we are required to advertise that we are sending out the petition and the manner in which the signatures are to be applied. Also, the petition itself states very clearly, I think we even put it in red, that you are to submit your petition if you are opposed to the continuation of the business improvement area. And of the petitions that we received, the Act requires that the majority of owners sign the petition, and in many cases there are multiple owners on a particular site, and so for the petitions that we received that were not eligible to be counted, it was because not enough of the owners submitted, in many cases, not enough of the owners actually submitted their petitions.
So my point is valid then. They were not informed of a reversal of procedures. The first two...
No, they were informed. It was clearly marked on the petition.
That's not what you just said. I'm sorry.
No, that is what I just said.
Okay, that's not what I just heard. Anyway.
Okay, Councillor Powell, are you done? Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd also like to thank you for your presentation. I appreciate that you're trying to do something along the street, and I also do think that in many communities that have a very vibrant flavor to the downtown area, each area they're not cookie cutter areas, and it can be very nice to have a slightly different feel in slightly different districts. So nice to see some creative work there. I do wonder, though, my question is around, probably through Your Worship, to staff. A number of these items, although you say we're not asking for money, but in fact there is a cost associated with whether it be planters or benches or installing things or painting things. I don't know if, for instance, if some of the plans to repaint crosswalks and curbsides may be coming up anyway. What does this bump out? How can this fit in priorities? And if that's feasible, I'm also wondering if each question can be considered separately, or are they all together? So, for instance, the archway is an interesting idea as well, and but I don't know, again, what sort of costs would be involved with the city or how we proceed with that.
I believe the archway is being referred to in terms of a feasibility study.
We just want to investigate whether it's possible, basically. And engineering, as I said, I spoke to El Metcalf, and he'd said footprint size, accessibility, limited access, all that sort of stuff has to be looked at. And whether the arch would be high enough for heavy vehicles. There's lots of things to consider. And there's no point in proceeding unless Council believes it's a good idea. But I would like to address a couple of other issues that you brought up, if that's okay. We know that there are, well, we have been informed that there are bench seats available. I know it's going to cost, but it's the minimum. We're not talking about the low-hanging fruit. We're not asking for a lot of money. There are benches available, we've been told. There are garbage bins available, we've been told. I know it costs money to install such things. Painting the curbs and the crosswalks, again, there is cost. My complaint would be that PDBA has a budget to do these sort of things, but they never use it because they claim they can't single out one area because they'll be showing preference to that particular area. Well, you've got to start somewhere. If you take that approach where you can't start on one particular area, you don't start.
Follow up? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so hearing all of that, and I can appreciate that, I'd actually like to echo what Councillor Greir said, that it just seems that within the PDBA, to convince or work with a larger group to see the improvement along Craig Street to be not only a benefit to that particular area, but to pull people into the shopping area and spread out into other areas. So I just wonder, again, I think it would be important to be working together to look at that.
I think you misunderstand our position. We believe that PDBA is a good thing. The way it's being run at the time being is not. It's certainly not transparent. It's difficult to get a position on the board. You go through a process of interviews to see if you're suitable. That was never designed. I mean, I'm glad you people didn't have to go through the same process to become councillors, because, you know, the question would beg the question. But to get on the PDBA, you've got to be found to be suitable. That to me is just lunacy. If you're a volunteer, you should be, and there are vacancies and there's nobody else applying for those vacancies, why not put you on the board? Every bit helps. That person may not agree with your policies or your ideas, but isn't that a good thing? Right? They block people that they know won't agree with their ideas.
Okay. Councillor O.
Thank you for your presentation. Certainly it's important that small businesses get supported. On your presentation, throughout the presentation, you referred to the district. What do you define as the district?
Well, as I mentioned, the Craig Street district, right now it's Craig Street. But we did Christmas on Craig Street, and a lot of people were asking, well, why weren't we included? The PDBA was supposed to do something. There was an inkling they were going to, and then all of a sudden nothing happened. And that's why I say we put ours together at short notice, and it was relatively successful. The district I refer to is Craig Street and the adjoining area. And it's probably, hopefully with the assistance of the PDBA, it will become the whole BIA. But where we're focusing on is our particular area, because the businesses in Craig Street, basically all retail, during the winter months, times get tough. Spring, summer is great. We've got tourists coming out of ears. I'm not saying everyone's going to throw money away, but during the winter months, we rely on the local people to make money, to do our business. There's no tourists. We've had people in Parksville walk into our stores and say, didn't even know you were here. So, I mean, Shelley's a classic example.
We wanted to keep it as a district because we don't want to alienate anybody else. We believe, as a small business owner, I tell people that walk into my store, as far as Refresh, as far as the Orange Bridge, all these different stores, we do a good job of promoting. We know we're not the only shopping place in Parksville. We know that we're big, we're spread out. It's a little different than Qualicum or Ladysmith, but we kept it. We felt we weren't getting supported. So we formed our own group. It's just a group, informal. We've been meeting. We wanted to have a name for it. So district, because we don't feel that it should just be Craig Street. So that's why we named it district.
So, through the mayor, follow-up question. So in your presentation, you spoke about this being a start. And if you got the start, then you would embark on a promotional campaign to promote the district. That would be a campaign restricted to Craig Street.
Not at all. No, we're very proud to be Parksville businesses. We actually promote Parksville. Parksville downtown, if you want to call it that, but we're very proud to be businesses in Parksville. We're not Parksville Qualicum, we're Parksville. And that's why we're promoting the Parksville district. And if the area grows, the more it grows, the more businesses benefit. So it's a groundswell, we hope. But with the PDB, once we get the PDB on side and it's run more transparently, hopefully we'll achieve that. But we're not trying to shut down the PDBA. That is not our cause.
Follow-up, Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Worship, and through the chair. I just realize that this is very important to you and it's valuable that you're coming to us and sharing this with us. But I think what I'm hearing is there's a faction that's happened with a group. So the group has split, and now there's a faction. And it doesn't sound like it's a healthy situation, because we're not talking to us, and we're not getting our needs met. And we feel that we should be getting these things done, the benches, and we should be getting things done with regard to the Christmas on Craig Street and those things. But the conversations aren't happening. And so I'm not certain that this is the place to actually resolve that. I'm not certain if perhaps going to the Chamber of Commerce and speaking together as a group with the Chamber of Commerce, letting them hear this, letting them hear both sides, letting them maybe help to resolve what's happening between you, because it does sound like you have really good ideas. I think the whole group working together could do some really good work, but when there's separations like this and there's discord, things don't get done.
Well, if you're sensing a sense of frustration, you're right. We've been trying. It's not as though we've just suddenly come up with an idea or come up in front of council and say, look, we believe that it's going to take a professional marketing company to come up with a way of re-energizing the downtown area. Because obviously the people in the PDBA right now aren't achieving that. We need to re-energize, not just revitalize, but we need to get focus on the whole of the BIA and start getting people interested in shopping here, shopping locally. We compete with Nanaimo, we compete with the big stores. I mean, it's only a couple of hours to go to large cities. And if people want to do major shops, they can go to basically jump on a ferry and go anywhere. But what we're trying to encourage is local business. My wife and I saw a sign in Santa Monica, that says shop locally, Santa Monica. Now that says everything to us. What we want is to re-energize and get people interested, have events happening in the downtown area that attract people and business to our part of the world, so they can shop and do business where we are. And our frustration is it's not happening.
I would like to say we did have the first meeting we had with the PDBA was with the Chamber as well. I invited the Chamber, and the Chamber of Commerce has been fantastic to deal with. They listen, they have opinions. We listen, we have opinions, and they're supportive. And again, nothing against the PDBA, but we don't feel I personally feel that we butt heads every time, and it is a lot of people, and we just don't feel if they're supposed to be working for us and with us, we don't feel that that's what we're getting. So we have had the meetings with the Chamber as well, and that I don't think that there is any problem with everybody, the city, the Chamber, and the PDBA, and all the small businesses working together. That's what we want, 100%.
As a final, we're not just picking on the PDBA, we're actually picking on the city as well. So, because the city's been short in doing things in downtown area, so and that's sort of tongue-in-cheek, I know, but the city is also responsible for dressing up the place. Just that the PDBA receive a budget to do just that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I'm going to try and attempt to give a resume of what we've heard this evening. And first of all, I can understand that this is under the heading of downtown revitalization, which is an important topic for all of us. And it's something that needs to be pursued, and it needs to be dealt with continuously, as far as I'm concerned. So you're specifically asking for curb painting, crosswalk painting, benches, flower pots, and a feasibility study of the archway.
And garbage bins.
Pardon me?
And garbage bins. Sorry. And garbage bins.
And
garbage bins.
Oh, garbage. I'm sorry. Garbage.
Sorry, I have an accent. Sorry.
I'm wondering if members of council would, I mean, the PDBA are in the audience tonight, so they've listened to the presentation also. What I would like to suggest is that, because I do consider it to be low-hanging fruit, this is not a multi-million-dollar infrastructure renovation. I'm wondering if I could get a motion to refer those specific requests to staff for a cost estimate, and bring that back to council, and we can discuss where and when and how how that could be paid for. Budget discussions are coming up in the not too distant future. So is there a motion to refer to staff? Councillor Oakes, do I have a seconder? Councillor Salter, any questions or any comments?
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to refer it with directions that if they're going to look at the cost of or estimate the cost of what all those items would be, could they also include what the cost to the PDBA would be as well? Because we already give them part of that money to do some of these things, and so, no, you don't. Yeah. I would like to see that anyways.
But if the PDBA, just as an aside, Councillor Powell, if the PDBA, I would rather see us identify the cost, and then look at it from a budgetary point of view. There may be that information could be relayed to the PDBA, but I think that to include that as an option, I don't think that's. Let's get a handle on the cost and let's go from there. Okay, Councillor Oakes.
Just for clarification, what we're costing is the benches, the garbage cans, the flower boxes, the crosswalk painting, and the lighting improvements?
No, not the lighting improvements, just the curb painting, the crosswalk painting.
So I want to get this straight. Which ones are they?
Okay, the curb painting, the crosswalk painting.
Yep.
The garbage units, the benches, and the flower pots.
Okay.
And a feasibility study of the archway.
Well, Your Honour, just to clarify, that was just I didn't want a feasibility study. I just want to make sure that I have the blessing of the council to look at it, and maybe later on I'll come back with a proposal. But right now, I just want to make sure it's okay for us to start looking at it.
Well, you want to look at it then.
Well, you can go ahead yourself. I mean, it saves me a lot of work. But if you think the council is better to do it, then we don't.
That is my specific area of concern. I think it's fine that we get a costing on the other items there. For council, though, to give the blessing with the respect to looking at an arch, that I think becomes a landmark of our town, and maybe we need to first have a decision that is where we'd want an arch if we were going to put one. And I think it's a pretty significant gesture on the part of council to give the blessing to you having an arch there, when it may very well be decided in the future that the arch belongs somewhere else in town. So that's my concern.
I wasn't inferring that council would approve. This was for council to approve the arch. I was simply referring to having staff look at what sort of steps would have to be taken.
Yes, thank you.
If that were to ever occur, cost-wise. Who owns the land? Where would it go?
If you think it's a good idea.
Councillor Beal? Councillor?
Yeah, my concern, of course, is once we start down that road with your street, we have an awful lot of other streets in town. I understand there's a group on the street where the Home Hardware is on. They want to do something special. So do we have a whole lot of groups wanting to just do their own street? I mean, you have to be careful when you're on council here and we're giving some estimates and what we're going to do for one street. We have to be careful that we're not snubbing our nose at another street. I mean, this is why I think you've got to work together as one group. Being a whole lot of groups doesn't work very well in a small town.
Absolutely, 100% agreed, but does that not say to you that the PDBA is not doing their job? If there's a whole bunch of streets and businesses forming different groups because we don't feel like we're being supported by the PDBA or the city, or that, I think that is what is happening because we don't feel supported.
But I think it's going to be up to you people to sit down and iron this out.
100% agreed again.
You're giving us something to do here, and yet there's dissatisfaction out there.
Because we haven't got anywhere with them, that's why we're sitting here today.
We butt heads all the time, so what's the point? I mean, if you're saying we should be friends and make friends, it's fine to say that. We've been attempting to do that, but with no success.
Well, you'll have to bring in a mediator or something. You obviously need some help.
Yes.
Well, Councillor Greir, just as an aside, also, I think that at some point in time, the PDBA will have to. These demands will come obviously through the PDBA also, so we'll have to look at our MOU and see how we can deal with that. I think we've discussed this long enough. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And if you get us a copy of that, thank you.
Thank you.
What's the score in the hockey game? What's the score in the hockey game? Okay, our next presenters, ladies and gentlemen, are the Parksville and District Chamber of Commerce, represented by Robynne Shaw, and the President and Mr. Kim Burden, the Executive Director. And an extra welcome to Robynne Shaw.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council, and thank you. Thank you very much for allowing us to do this presentation tonight. It's basically just an overview of what we've been doing with the Visitor Information Center and what we do to help not just visitors to the area, but as well as residents.
I need my notes, just a second. How do I get to presenter?
Oh, use presenter view?
Yeah, there we go.
And then start your slide.
God, no, we don't make that go away. Let's just try this. You know what? We'll just wing it, okay?
Sorry, Ken.
That's okay. The Chamber of Commerce and the Visitor Center, located just past exit 46 at 1275 East Island Highway, has been referred to as the watering hole of the community. Eventually, everybody gets there at some point for something. We have a number of services that we provide to residents, relocation packages, welcoming packages for a variety of event attendees. We put together information packages for sports events, for conferences, etc. We've got local business information both in-house and on our website. We've got daily events up on our whiteboard. We are the distribution center for the Yellow Pages. I don't know why that still exists, but there you go. We're it. We have distribution for both of the local newspapers. Ferry schedules, seeing as how BC Ferries is deemed to not publish those anymore. And of course, we provide information for our local residents who are wanting to go take a trip somewhere on the island and off the island. For visitors, we provide accommodation information, of course, and beyond accommodation information, we have a desk where folks can go to book accommodation. We've got all of the accommodation in town on speed dial, so they're able to dial a reservation. We published our own restaurant guide, but that has since been replaced by the very fine production from What's on Media, their restaurant guide. We provide information about all of the cultural events in town. Again, our public washrooms are clean and tidy at all times. We have a small gift shop where we feature local artists. Many local artists. We've got some great artists in our community, and it's an opportunity for them to sell their goods as well as display them. Hiking is a big thing. We've got a publication that we provide to people who want to know where the trails are and how to get there and what difficulty they are and that sort of thing, and birding and fishing information is also available, and so much more. What does it take to operate the visitor center? We have a full-time visitor center manager who works 1,752 hours a year. I'd be willing to bet that she probably works significantly more than that. We have summer students who come in and man the desk and provide service to our guests and residents from the beginning of May through till the Labor Day weekend. And we've got a really excellent contingent of volunteers who put in roughly 1,120 hours per year. We've got 15 to 20 volunteers who, you know, it's a retirement community and folks are looking for things to do, and they're really they're a great resource for us. And then the chamber staff, myself, Linda Torts and Linda Schneider, also, of course, put in time both planning, supervising. I've worked the front desk on many occasions. I went in on Labor Day this year to see how busy it was going to be, and I served 90 people during the course of the day. It was actually a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. So there's a total there of about 4,600 hours, man hours to run the visitor center. What does it cost? Well, it costs $137,000. When you add in the wages, training, we run a very intense training program for both our volunteers and our summer students, promoting, and then there is some expense in some of the revenue generation things that we've done so that we can raise the revenue that's required to operate the visitor center. So we received $20,000 from the federal government to cover the students. We received $22,670 from Tourism BC. That's been a stagnant number for some years now. The City of Parksville, we received last year $42,115 for the operation of the visitor center. Thank you. And then through our revenue generation projects, sale of art, sale of maps, sale of advertising to our members. We obviously operate the sign at Exit 46, and we contribute the revenue that we receive from advertising events and that sort of thing at the bottom of that big sign to the operation of the visitor center. So as you can see, there's a $9,515 shortfall, which we consider to be a contribution from the members of the Chamber of Commerce, and it's money well spent, because obviously through the operation of the visitor center, we are promoting our community and we are promoting the businesses within that community. Our total visitors down a little bit this year, 23,500 down from about 25,000. Total groups, 14,000 down from 16,000. Where do they come from? 30% of the visits are from local residents. 37% of the visits are from folks in British Columbia on down the list. Interesting to note that Europe is a fairly significant piece of what we see. We see a lot of Germans, a lot of Dutch, and a lot of Swiss. They love it here. And they keep coming back, and a lot of that is on their way through to the West Coast, which is another identified destination for folks from Europe. Thank you. We love our sign. We hope you love it. For those of you that are possibly new, it was bought and paid for by your local Chamber of Commerce as our contribution to promoting the city.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from staff? Councillor Greir.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Everything looks pretty good at the Chamber. I like the sign. I think everyone's doing a good job. A couple of questions. A couple of places where I've traveled, I go into the Chamber of Office to see where I might book in for reservations. They make the phone call for me. They get a really good price, and I understand that they get a percentage back. Do you people operate that at all, where you'll get a percentage back from the hotels?
No.
No. It's not a bad idea, you know.
Well, you know, most of the resorts are our members, and we have provide them with other opportunities to fund activities through the Chamber of Commerce. So the hotels, everybody pays the same membership at the Chamber. Our membership fee is the same all the way across the board, except for not-for-profits who pay half. and accommodations and campsites pay an additional $2 a door or $1 a campsite because we do provide them with a little additional service. So they contribute in that way. And the accommodation sector have been good contributors to events and sponsorships and those sorts of things.
So you don't think that's a good idea for Parksville?
That might be a good idea, but I don't believe that it would work in our model.
Yeah. How do you make up the difference between the revenue and what you make? The revenue and your expenses, sorry.
We've got a number of events and activities that we turn a profit on. And so that contributes. You know, just as an aside, I did a presentation in September to a group of my peers. It was called Show Me the Money. And it was about non-membership, non-dues revenue for chambers of commerce. And the first thing that we looked at was the value of a membership. So you take your membership and you divide it by the number of members that you have, or you take your budget rather and divide it by your members. Our value is $980 per member. So we've got other sources of revenue that we're looking at. Our membership is only $200 a member. Okay.
Thank you.
So that's part of that value.
Any further questions from members of council? Seeing none, thank you very much. If you want to stick around, your next item is on the reports agenda.
We do. Thank you.
Okay, we're into reports now, fellow members of council. And the first report we have is 4A, the Chief Administrative Officer. Mr. Manson, would you please give us a background on the issue regarding the Parksville District Chamber of Commerce 2015 fee for service agreement?
Thank you, Your Worship. As the presenter just said, this is the fee-for-service agreement that we have with the Chamber. The service that they provide us is the operation of the Visitor Information Center. This is the fee-for-service agreement. It's up for renewal. It's essentially exactly the same as it has been for the last several years. The only changes are the hours and days of operations to make them work for 2015. Section 3 is changed to 2015 again. And then we've made a small change with regards to the calculation of the inflationary increase. It's based on the October to October consumer price index for BC. Otherwise, the agreement is exactly the same for the 42,000 and change as is outlined in the report.
Thank you, Mr. Manson. Everyone has read the recommendations and read the report. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Greir, seconded by Councillor Salter. Any questions or comments regarding the recommendations? Councillor Oakes.
Yes, Your Worship, to Mr. Manson. The under Section 2, you said it's been increased by 1.1%.
That's correct.
So the total cost increase is the number there, $463.28?
That's correct.
And the budgeted amount for that was a 2% increase?
That would be correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried.
Sorry about this. If Your Worship, the city has received a development permit application for a facade upgrade to the exterior of the A&W restaurant on 540 Island Highway East. And basically, it's the existing structure. This is sort of showing you some context. There's an air photo showing the overall site, so it's a pre-existing site. This is kind of the view from the street right now, so it's already fairly heavily landscaped. Pretty heavily landscaped. What's proposed are basically exterior upgrades to the facade of the building itself to freshen up the building. These are just some other details. The proposal was reviewed by the advisory design panel. The advisory design panel provided some suggestions. The proponent has responded to those suggestions, and staff is of the opinion that it's in general compliance with the guidelines that are applicable given the scope of work proposed.
Before I ask for a mover and seconder for the recommendation, any questions for Mr. Russell? Councillor O.
I was trying to determine when I looked through it what effect this would have on the light intensity to the area. Does this proposal have a significant impact on the number of lumens or whatever it is they call it is generated there? By approving this, are we going to increase the amount of light that comes from that property?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Oates, the staff don't anticipate any significant change in the lighting. There's already exterior internally illuminated signs on the building, so it would be pretty similar.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Beale, seconded by Councillor Oakes. Any further comments, questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Mr. Russell, you're not going away, so would you please give us the background on the consideration of a zoning and development bylaw amendment to facilitate a vehicle parking and display area at Joe Cunningham Ford at 234 and 244 Mill Street?
If I may, Your Worship, so this report has been to Council previously. Since it was to Council prior, the proponent has held an open house. So the applicant hosted a public open house on Wednesday, November the 26th from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Joe Cunningham Ford Room, dealership right next door to the subject properties. We received 7 comment sheets which are attached as per the staff report. At this stage, staff are recommending consideration of second reading and the setting of the public hearing date so that further public consultation can occur.
Thank you. You'll notice in the recommendation that there'd be a public hearing date if this were to pass. Any questions for Mr. Russell on this particular item? No? Seeing none, do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Greir, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried, and I thank you. Mr. You're still there. Please provide us a background on the issue regarding the consideration of a zoning and development bylaw amendment to facilitate an expansion of the church and parking area at 795 Island Highway West.
If I may, Your Worship, this is a similar situation where the proponent held a public open house on Thursday, October the 23rd from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. As of the writing of the report, 1 correspondence was received from an adjacent neighbor. I'm just going to kind of provide a site plan here to kind of give a bit of a context to the site. This is kind of a repeat performance here, but this is the overall church property that you can see. Approximately this portion here is proposed to be rezoned to allow for an expanded parking area, as well as slight relocation of an existing driveway entrance. There are 3 lots that are actually along here that were subdivided fairly recently and are no longer owned by the church itself. This sort of shows a bit better the area in question. So these are the 3 lots that now exist, and this is the portion of the property that has the remaining single-family zone, which is proposed to be converted into the P2 private sorry, I got the name wrong, but it's the P2, the P2 zone. Private institutional, sorry. So basically the recommendations of the staff report is that council consider giving it second reading and the establishment of the public hearing date, which appears later on the agenda in the bylaw section that allows for further public consultation.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Russell? Yes, Councillor Salter.
So I did notice that there was some correspondence from a neighbor that's in part of our package. So has there been anything since that particular correspondence with regard to those issues that they had and whatever was done to resolve it?
If I may, Mayorship, through to Councillor Salter, one correspondence was received today, and it will appear as part of the public hearing agenda package, but it wasn't possible to include it in the staff report at the time of writing. Yeah.
Any further questions from members of council? Okay, seeing none, and again, this should be subject to a public hearing. So do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Powell. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That's carried.
Yes, Your Worship, the Local Government Act requires that within 30 days of the final declaration of election results, that a report be presented to Council outlining the results of the election and the number of votes cast for each candidate. So that is what this report does. It responds to that legislative requirement, and the recommendation is as per the agenda.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Comas? Go ahead, Councillor Greir. Councillor Greir wants a recount, I think.
Actually, I did the first year I ran. There was a lot of things going on, you know. Anyways, this new act that has appeared this year, I had to fill out, I don't know, 15 pages, and I've sent them in, and then I get a phone call back because I didn't tick one item, and rather than go thrown in jail, I had to do it all again. So, and am I finished now with the city? I don't have to file any papers with you people?
No, you don't have to file with the city. The new legislation that was brought in, the LECFA legislation, put all of those responsibilities onto Elections BC. And so when it comes to post-election reporting, it's all done with the province.
They've done a really good job of complicating things. Thanks.
Any further questions? I have a question. It is possible, I would imagine, that between now and February, what's the deadline? February the 30th? February 28th?
No, I believe
February 15th?
February 15th.
Could we receive further inquiries? My financial agent submitted all my work. I don't think I had anything to submit, so.
Well, if your financial agent submitted everything on your behalf, they'll let you know if there are any issues with it.
I'm going to tell them to call my financial agent if they call me.
Well, that's exactly what you appointed the financial agent for, so that would be appropriate.
What about the money in Zurich? You declared that?
On that note, I think we'll simply call the vote. I need a mover and a seconder. Who's going to move? Councillor Oakes, Councillor Beale. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, the next item is bylaws. We have a second reading and advance to public hearing. We have two bylaws for second reading and advance to public hearing tonight. The first one is the Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2014, number 2000.97. Map amendment to amend 234 and 244 Mill Street from RS1 to Highway Commercial CS1. Can I do both at the same time? So with council's permission, I'll do both. And then the map amendment to property located at 795 Island Highway West, RS1 to P2. Mover, Councillor Greir, seconded by Councillor Powell. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. Okay. Now, I have I need another mover and seconder for the recommendations below. That's zoning. What am I doing here? I've done that already again. Why is that doubly? Anyway, it's done. Okay. I'll get used to it. Bear with me.
Just new business.
We're now under new business. Does any member of council have any new business? And if you all have new business, I'm going to go around again. No, no, no. Councillor Greir.
Thank you, Your Worship. This will take about a minute. Before we hold a budget meeting in January, I'd like our staff to come up with a policy on how we give donations, sponsorship, etc., money out at council meetings. For the new councillors' information, each year we have a grant and aid program of $5,000 split $2,500 twice a year. These groups have to fill out an application form to qualify, showing financial statements, etc. The amounts usually end up $200, $500. At the same time, we have many delegations who come to council looking for much bigger amounts, such as $500 to $10,000. Council then has to make a quick, difficult decision on whether to give this money out or not, otherwise decide who is worthy and who are not. This money comes out of a $25,000 contingency fund. The problem I have with this is that these groups are circumventing the grant and aid program by not having to qualify. They find it easier to come to council, direct, and ask for money. Further, I believe a true contingency fund is for emergencies only, such as a family being burned out or other city emergencies. Many other cities have now eliminated supportive donations, putting the onus on these groups to do their own fundraising. Qualicum Beach is one of them. With that in mind, I am making a motion that staff be directed to review policies other communities have adopted and develop a policy to establish firm guidelines on groups looking for money. It is long past due to be more fiscally responsible with our citizens' tax dollars. Was it opposed? Well, me too. So welcome to the club. So, but if you didn't raise your hand, you're in favor of it. So, okay, that'll be an interesting discussion. If you'll permit me, if nobody else has any new business, pardon me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to follow up with a motion we made in the last council about wood-burning stoves and where that is and when are we going to get a report?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Supal, we're actively working on that as we speak. We're also coordinating with the Regional District of Nanaimo. There's also some changes underway with provincial legislation, so we're looking at aspects of that. It's kind of a combination of the wood-burning stove as well as the overall topic of slash burning. So those both combined, there's some legislative changes that we're seeing how they unfold at the moment. We're hoping sometime, probably February is my best guess.
Any other business, new business? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Like many others around the table, I'm sure that they've met with some of their liaison and boards. Last week was busy. I met with the Parksville Historical Museum, and they're going to be working diligently on trying to brand themselves and do some other work in the community. So I'm really looking forward to bringing some more information to council. I also met with the Accessibility Oceanside group, and they're working on a grant application, and again, a lot of things going on in the community, so I'll be bringing some more things forward. Thank you.
Well, I'm so disappointed. I thought maybe you'd say they're going to be asking for money so we could get a little rise out of Councillor Greir. If you'll permit me, I have a few comments I'd like to make under new business. First of all, I want to express my and that of council's sympathy on the passing of Patrick Nicholson. Patrick was a great contributor to our community through his work and through his volunteering, and he's going to be sadly missed. And there's for the information of the public, there's going to be a commemoration or a celebration of life on January the 10th. And when I know more about that, I'll let everybody know. The next item It's an issue that Councillor Oakes and I discussed at the last meeting, but it was an inaugural meeting, but it was the defeat of the BYLAWS senior boys football team by 1 point. And that point was contested. That call was, there was a call during that game that should have never happened. And I was tempted to call for a motion to declare them the winners and not the losers, but I guess that's not in the book. So congratulations to our BYLAWS football team. And lastly, it's Christmas season coming up, so I want to wish to everybody on behalf of Council a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever celebrations you're celebrating at this time of the year, because there are many. So on that note, we're going to go into special business pursuant to, and I have to read this, so before I get to ask for a mover and a seconder, pursuant to Section 91C and D of the Community Charter, Council proceed to a closed meeting to consider items relating to labor and land. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that motion? Councillor Beal, Councillor Powell, all those in favor? It's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break.